Welcome to our podcast, Women Need to Do Better. And this is where we do that without judgment or pressure. Just real honest conversations about what life really looks like behind closed doors. If you're new to me, thank you so much for joining. My name is Shelly. I am your host. And if you are back for more, I really appreciate your support. This episode is episode 32. We are talking about Annie again. And this episode is called Giving More Than She Gets. If you saw Annie's introduction podcast, that was episode 28, The Friend Who Carries the Friendships. And Annie, if you want to kind of see who she is, go ahead and watch that episode. But in that episode, we were talking about how it took her 3 weeks to plan out a girls' dinner that she really wanted to have with her and 3 of her best friends. And she wanted to have that just being the girls because there was a conversation she wanted to have around something that was pretty important to her, a letter that she had gotten that she kind of wanted to run by them for some advice and direction. But that dinner for 4 ended up being dinner for 6 because 2 of them kind of last minute invited their partners, and Annie's very accommodating. So she was like, sure, no problem. Anyways, one of her friends that was at that friend group, one of the ones that invited one of her partners, her name is Meg, and Annie had contacted me for another session. We talk things through. We help her decompress and prioritize the goals that she has for her life. And one of those things we were talking about is the dynamics of how she shows up in her friend groups and how her friends show up for her. So Annie is the kind of person that likes to have time to plan things out. She's very intentional. She's really good at what she does. It's why she's got the job she's got. It's why she makes the money she makes. It's why she has the success that she has. And she always strives for perfection, which we've talked about. High achieving women, we would like perfection, but it's not realistic to have that all the time. Sometimes we got to have a way to have a little bit of grace and a little bit of forgiveness for ourselves, because that high standard, keeping to that is not healthy. It's going to stress you out and it's going to cause more problems than it's worth. So anyways, Meg had called Annie kind of last minute for some help with a barbecue she was having. Meg was having this big celebration with the kids and some extended family and some out-of-town family that was visiting. She is not always the best at events and things like that, where that is right up Annie's alley. So, of course, Meg's going to call Annie. So it was like, okay, what did Meg need? And I said, well, she didn't have all the food planned out. She was trying to make sure, because there were certain people that had certain allergies or food dietary restrictions. And she was like, I don't even know how to navigate that. And Annie's like, I got you. No problem. So she's like, oh yeah, by the way, there's also going to be some kids there. And she gave her the ages. And Meg really wanted everybody to just, show up for this barbecue, have a good time. And Annie, she loves helping. She's absolutely great at event planning. In fact, she loves event planning. It's part of her job. So she helped Meg figure out the games, figure out the food, figure out the setup, all the things. And of course, Meg called Annie, and Annie got about 2 days notice. So that's not ideal for Annie, but she's one of those friends you call when you're in a jam, and she just pulls magic out of a hat and makes things work, which is why they call Annie. And Annie was telling me that, obviously everything worked out in the end, but going through it, right? When someone slams something on you kind of last minute, I don't want to say slams, but, gives you something and then you offer your help, right? Well, because Annie had offered her help to Meg, and by the end of the workday on Friday, granted the barbecue was on Saturday, Annie was stressing out bad because she was doing all this extra stuff for Meg. I don't think Meg really even realizes it because Annie doesn't say stuff. She's not going to make her friend feel bad. But a job went sideways for Annie at work and was going to require her time on Saturday before the barbecue. And so, of course, Annie, in her mind, is just rearranging things, right? That's what we do. We get thrown something else, a curveball, something from left field. That's what we do. We adjust, we pivot, we figure out, okay, how are we going to make this work? And that's what she did. So that means rearranging all the plans that she had with Meg's barbecue to fit in her priorities for her job. And I mean, she made it work. But when Annie was telling me this, she was like, there was stuff that I was supposed to bring for food to Meg's house, and I didn't make it because I completely forgot about it. I didn't have enough time for this or that. Not all the games got put out. And I said, Annie, who complained at the barbecue? Did anybody notice that food was missing or notice that some game wasn't there? And she was like, no. I said, okay, so the only person bothered really was you. She's like, I know, but I put in all this effort and work to get this. And I'm like, I know. And it's our perfectionism in us, right? We want things to go a certain way. And it's hard to let go. It's hard to let go of the vision that we have. And I said, but bottom line, did everybody have fun at the barbecue? And she goes, I think so. Meg was telling me that, nobody complained. And Meg, she ran up to me and she hugged me and she basically, that's what gives Annie energy is Meg was so thankful that she got the help. She knew she could have done it by herself. And that's what matters. So, that felt good. And it definitely energizes her. But Meg is also the friend that Annie had called to help her with moving a piece of furniture that Annie had got. So Annie bought her house, and one of the bedrooms she was decorating to be like her Zen sanctuary, which I'm a little jealous. I'm not gonna lie. So she was kind of figuring out how to get this room to be perfect for just those days when you've just had a long week, or you maybe just a day just took you by the throat and just throttled you. So she wanted a room where she could go in there and just feel completely at peace. Or even if she couldn't be completely at peace, at least shed some of the stress. And Annie does everything with intention. She's got a plan for stuff. She's type A. There's nothing wrong with type A. I just say this because when you recognize how you function, the things that light you up, the things that give you energy, the things that move you, you have to work with that. Don't try to force yourself into somebody that you're not, because that's going to make you miserable. Trust me. A lot of the women that I work with try to fit themselves in someone else's box. And I'm telling you, that is not ideal. That's not the way to live your life. Live it how you want. I'm not going to tell you how to live your life. But if you want that happiness, you want that joy, you want that energy, be you and learn how to bring the real you out. So anyways, I digress. It took her a long time to find that piece of furniture. Don't remember exactly what it was, but it was like that perfect piece that would finish out her Zen sanctuary and just make it all perfect. And it was too bulky to move by herself, but it wasn't too heavy. So Meg was supposed to come over, and Meg does what Meg does. I mean, she's got a busy life. She's got family. She's got kids. And she canceled on Annie about 20 minutes before she was supposed to show up. And, that bothers Annie. I mean, and she gets it, and she wasn't mad at Meg. She understands Meg has responsibilities and things like that. But Annie was a little disappointed in herself for not seeing that, she's probably going to cancel because she kind of has a habit of doing that. So isn't it funny how when we are put in a position like Annie and the barbecue, she had work that popped up, but she took on more and she made it work. But sometimes we can't expect someone else to be like us. And we have to decide, is that something that we are going to continue with or not? Just putting it out there. It doesn't make you a bad guy, it doesn't make them a bad guy. It just, sometimes we have to start seeing what's going on so that way we can recognize, is this something that I'm okay with. Because if you're not okay with that, then you're going to start holding resentment and it's going to start bothering you. And these are the real conversations we need to have. This is why women need to do better. We need to have friends that we can have hard conversations with that are going to recognize us. And I say that we would save so much time if we would just be honest. I've seen a lot of women make relationships work, whether it's friends or partners, in ways that you wouldn't think would, but having those conversations, hey, this is where I'm coming from. This is how it feels. Because if you don't say it, they're not going to know it. So anyways, Annie did get it figured out. She got her Zen room set up. She showed me pictures and oh my gosh, like I said, I'm a little jealous. It is a beautiful room. And even just looking at the pictures, you ever see pictures of a room where you're just like, oh my gosh, I just feel relaxed just looking at that. And so that's the room that she goes into when she needs to just kind of quiet her mind. And that letter, it popped up again in her head in our conversation or session. She was talking about that letter she's had for several months. That the whole reason why she wanted to have that dinner, the girls' dinner, and it was from a professor from her college days that she very much respected and kind of mentored her. And it was an opportunity for her that she was mulling around in her head. And sometimes when we get opportunities that fall into our lap, we overthink them or we put too much weight on what we think somebody else thinks about us. And that can be dangerous because how many times do you hem or haw or kind of on the fence about a decision that maybe if you stripped away all the mental load of trying to overthink the situation or think about what is someone else's idea of what you should do because you're trying to please somebody else. And I get it. We want to please ourselves. We want to do what's right for us, but we also want to do what's right for others. And sometimes I'm telling you, those two don't match. Sometimes they conflict with each other. And Annie actually was thinking about that letter again. She's read it so many times she can almost memorize, say it word for word. But she was out with a friend a few days after that over coffee. They were just chit-chatting, getting together, kind of catching up on what's going on in each other's life. And her friend Annie was telling me, she kind of noticed. She said, "Hey, Annie, is everything okay?" You kind of seem a little distant. And Annie was like, she wanted to say, "I got this letter from the college professor, mentor, and it's this great opportunity for me. And I just don't know how I feel about it." And those words were almost going to come out of her mouth. She almost had that opportunity to share that with her friend on a one-on-one coffee. And then I said, "Why didn't you tell her?" She said, I don't know. She wanted to say it. And then she ended up just saying, there's a lot of stuff going on at work. And yeah, I'm just kind of tired. And that's the thing about Annie and probably a lot of you, where there's stuff on your mind. There are things that you want to share with your friends. There's things that you want to say, but we're taught to keep it in because we don't want to be that person that's always venting, always complaining or whining or blah, 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 blah. And really, it wasn't about her whining or complaining. Sometimes we don't say what we want to say because we don't want to take up too much space. We don't want to inconvenience our friends. We don't want to, whatever your excuse is. And in that moment, her friend didn't even push her because Annie's just really good at just handling it all herself. And that's really why it's so important for women to do better. We are better when we encourage each other, when we are a community, when we support each other. And somehow, for whatever reason, we keep conversations that should come out stuck in our heads, stuck in our minds, stuck inside. And so it begs the question for you listening there. Do you guys do that? Do you judge yourself against what you think the world wants you to be? Do you know what it is inside you that you want? Because sometimes when we share these things with our friends, with our safe spaces, right? The people that we trust. I don't know how many times you have ever just started talking about something with your friend and it just starts coming out because like it starts with that one sentence and then they encourage you and then it just releases and you're like, oh my gosh. And you say something that surprises you that you didn't realize was in there because you kept it bottled up. And that letter she's debating about is still about that perfectionism. If she does this, how is her mentor going to view her? Because she doesn't want to lose, you know, the credibility that she has with him or feel like she's failed him somehow. And sometimes that's a lot of what keeps us small. It keeps us from really sharing things because we have this image of how we want to present ourselves to those that we care about. And we have to remind ourselves that life isn't about perfection. It's about being true to ourselves. And sometimes when you show who your true self is, it might not match what we think someone else views us as, but it gives them the opportunity to see who we really are. And maybe the fear is losing somebody in our life. That could be. Maybe it's the fear of their opinion about us. But when we're honest, we save so much time and heartache because people are in our lives for a reason or a season. And when they show up and we show who we are and they show who they really are, life gets easier. And if these stories inspire you, Annie and Trish, Rose and Lisa, if you can relate to them, I would love it if you would like my podcast, subscribe, share with a friend that you think could, use that too, that could feel seen. Because women do better when we lift each other up. And I really need your support in this community, just building this up. And next week, we're going to talk about Lisa. So until then, take care of yourselves and each other. Don't forget your coffee. Love and aloha.